Let's talk then for a minute in this second video about what the king has actually done to take away the rights of the colonists. In other words, if natural law gives us certain rights and those rights are for our good and the government's responsibility is to secure those rights, then what has the government done, what has the king done that those rights are to be regarded as not secure? So we've been talking about 3 sections to the Declaration of Independence. We just finished the foundation of government, and now we're going to look at that long train of abuses. In the next video, then, we will look at the Declaration of Independence proper. So what are those abuses that have come upon the American colonies? So without going into a lot of detail, we have problems with both the king and with the British people. So there is a long train of abuses that the king has been responsible for. He has, as Jefferson argues, he has hindered state legislatures. And he has done this in a number of different ways. He has sometimes abolished a state legislature if he doesn't like the way that that colony is dealing with the law and making rules that he doesn't like. He will dissolve that legislature, and then that colony has to go through all the trouble and problems of electing another one when they elected the last one and they believed in that one, if you know what I mean. So he would sometimes dissolve them. Sometimes he would move the location. So instead of meeting at the county seat where all the records are, where everything that they could use to make good law was, he would move the meeting to someplace quite distant where not all could come and where the records weren't, and then the legislature was expected to make good law. So several different ways in which he hindered the state legislatures. Sitting in the middle of Boston Harbor is the British military. Sitting in the homes of Bostonians is soldiers who have been quartered. They are eating my food. They are using my money. They are disturbing my family. And so the king is preferring the British military to his own citizens in the colonies. Every time that the king has done something, the colonies have tried to redress that grievance. So they have voted together in their legislature to ask that the king would fix this particular problem that they're facing. And instead of doing something about it, he would ignore it. And so that's another way in which the king has offended the citizens of the colonies. He has ignored our petitions for redress of grievances. He was responsible for paying the judges in the colonies, so what's the chances that the judges will give good verdicts when they are paid by the crown? If you were if you were arrested for some crime, he would sometimes make you stand for that crime in England. And so it would be a pretended offense. You would have to travel by boat to England, where your witnesses aren't, where your character, the people who would witness to your character are not there, the people who would witness the event are not there, and again, what are the chances that you're going to get a good trial? So the king has done a number of things, and they're listed in great detail in the Declaration of Independence. And Jefferson summarizes it by saying that the king has given repeated injury without redressing any of the grievances. But Jefferson says that there are more problems that we have than just with the king. We have problems also with the British people. He says that they are deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. What this means is that the people of England and the people of the colonies are the same nation, the same people, and they should have regarded each other as brothers and instead the king has tried to subordinate the colonies, and the people have done nothing to stand up for their brothers. In other words, the people of England have stood by as the king takes on these tyrannical measures, and they have said nothing. So they have appeared to be deaf to the voice of justice. As all of this long train of abuses has been coming down the pike, they have said nothing. And the voice of consanguinity is, we are brothers. Why did you not come to help defend and stand up for your brothers on the other side of the Atlantic? So he says, if there's going to be war, we will be enemies in war, but in peace, when this struggle is over, we will be friends. In other words, our problem is not with you, apart from your deafness. Our problem is with the king. When that is resolved, our animosity toward you will be over. We are enemies in war, but in peace we will be friends. That's the long train of abuses. This is different than, let's say, the French Revolution. So the way in which the British law worked, each of the colonial legislatures had their own charter. So there was a charter for Massachusetts in which they elected their own legislature. There's a charter in Virginia for which they elected their own legislature. Then those laws, those decisions were sent on to the king for approval. They were assumedly rubber stamped. And so the king and the colonies, before this controversy, had been very, the king had been very laissez-faire about it. He had let the colonies govern themselves. He'd been very hands-off. But the problem that has come up recently is the king is causing Parliament to... The Parliament is passing laws, mainly to try to recoup some of the money from the French and Indian War. But Parliament is passing laws, and they're not in the chain of command, right? They are the legislature for England, but they're not the legislature of Massachusetts or Virginia. And so that's the problem that is driving the colonies bonkers, is because the king is allowing somebody else into the chain of command where they don't fit. So this is a little bit different than the French Revolution. The French Revolution was a wholesale rebellion against the government. It was a rising up and the setting up of a new government. And then they would rise up again and throw that government out. And so it would roll like that. The American Revolution respected the rule of law. They had good and sufficient reason for breaking the covenant, breaking the charter that they had, because the king was not acting according to the charter. He was not redressing the grievances. He was subordinating his colonies under Parliament and under the thumb of the British military. And so by charter, we have the right to rebel. So we were respecting the rule of law even as we rebelled against the authority above us. That's different than the French Revolution, which did not respect the rule of law, and as a result they had revolution after revolution after revolution that ended with the tyranny of Napoleon. So that's the difference between French Revolution and American Revolution. When we come back, we will take a look then at the Declaration proper, the end of the Declaration of Independence that declares us to be independent from Great Britain. Thanks for hanging out.